You know, I think I've always just been a fan, and I think being in Colorado, I think it helps kind of facilitate that lust, if you will. I think there's a lot of opportunity there to perform, a lot of chances for you to kind of satiate that need, if you will. I grew up in the northeastern part of Pennsylvania. I grew up on SNL and early comedian stand-ups, and I was a die-hard Dennis Leary fan and Adam Sandler, and a lot of comedy that I just never really understood how much it meant to me until I actually started watching live stand-up. And to be honest, Adam Caton Holland was probably one of my biggest inspirations. And being in Denver, being so close to where he kind of like started, I mean, if you will, Adam is the godfather of the Denver comedy scene. He'll never admit it, but to be fair, he started a lot of the Squire comedy scene, the Grolics, the Bug Theater. There's a lot of independent scenes that owe kind of their development to Adam Caton Holland. So I think it was just one of those situations where I just put myself in that scene. And I come from the punk rock scene, so it's very easy once you start meeting people who play punk rock and do punk rock to start a punk rock band. So it's very similar with comedy. It was where you love comedy, you just kind of show up at comedy, and then you're just like, can I get up? Can I do a minute? And Ian Douglas Terry does the ratio stuff, and I help him produce it now. But before I helped him produce it, it was very DIY, and it was very how. He was like, "Do you want to get up?" And I was like, I'm not quite ready. And I don't really have anything written. And then it just kind of came to the point where it was like, I need to say something. If I don't say it now, I'll never do it. And then here we are, probably almost a year later, and I've produced Crom Comedy Festival. I've done multiple ratio shows. I've opened for Adam Caton Holland a multitude of times, and here we are at Fest, and Fest is the weekend of when, if you will, shit hits the fan. It's so scary. It's so scary. It's a level of I don't even know how to put it. It's you think you know what you're doing, and you realize you have no idea what you're doing. So you watch comedians, you think you could be funnier, you think you could be better, and in the end, in the reality, you're not funnier, you're not better. It's all a craft, and it takes time to hone, and it's a very long process. It's to this day, like, I did a set last night in Denver, and it was the first set that I'd ever done where I felt comfortable in my body, in my joke, in the timing and the setting and everything else. So, and I started doing stand-up a year ago. Now that's, in comedian years, that's a week. So a lot of these comedians that have been doing it, they've been grinding for years. Adam Caton Holland's been doing it for 14 years. I'm not anywhere near where they need to be, where they are, but I love it, and it's a grind. It's waking up every morning, writing jokes, feeling it, and working through it that night. So. I love Eddie Murphy Raw. I love Dennis Leary's No Cure for Cancer. I love Kyle Kinane, Whiskey Icarus Flew Too Close to the Sun, and that's not old school, but that's kind of like the guys that are like kind of pushing me to be better. Oh God, there's so many new albums coming out too that are so good, and so many. Patton Oswalt Annihilation is amazing if you haven't seen it. I think everything that Brett Davis is doing in New York is unbelievable. Dave Ross out of LA. There's so much out there now, and I think that's great about where we are in the scene, is that there's so much comedy out there to be consumed, and great companies like Netflix, Hulu, all these people are getting behind the comedy scene, and that's making it better. You know what I mean? It's allowing more comedians to have a voice and say what needs to be said and reach those people that actually connect with those comedians. So I don't know. That's a rough question. There's so much. I mean, we could sit here for hours and talk about all the great comedy that's out there. My favorite sitcom right now is probably New Girl. I love Smith. I love what Jake Johnson is doing. I love what Zoe Deschanel is doing. That's probably one of my favorite skit comedies. Otherwise, Goldberg's on ABC. What they're doing, like to homage most of my childhood from the '80s, is very. It hits right here. Sketch comedy, I will always fall over backwards for SNL, just because of the amount of work and level of professionalism that goes into it. Yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'm at. Can't even tell you, the last comedy film I watched was probably The House, and mainly that was because Rory Scovel was in it and Kyle Kinane was in it, who I'm familiar with, and obviously Rory Scovel's on Those Who Can't, which is with Adam Caton Holland, and Kyle Kinane, same thing. He's on Those Who Can't with Adam Caton Holland, and those two guys, I think, are pushing the underground comedy movement right now. If you're not a fan of Kyle Kinane or Rory Scovel, then you're probably not paying attention to what's going on in comedy right now. Brett Davis. Brett Davis is, if you're not watching the special without Brett Davis, I don't think you know what's going on in comedy as well. So. I would probably push to go on tour with Dennis Leary and Kyle Kinane in the same setting. I think if Kyle Kinane could open for Dennis Leary, then that would be my Valhalla moment. So. I would love to be roasted by Adam Caton Holland, Rory Scovel, Andrew Overdahl, Ben Roy, Ian Douglas Terry. I love improv. I love the fact of rolling off of jokes as they come at you. That's kind of more my wheelhouse. I'm more of the reactive comedian than I am the stand-up comedian. And I keep telling that to people, but they still keep putting me on stage as a stand-up comedian. So that would probably be my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse would be improv comedy, impersonations, things of that nature. You know, to be honest, I'm more of a background guy. I love doing comedy. I love performing comedy, but I also am wise enough to know that I'm probably not as funny as the people who are around me. So I would rather help them facilitate their careers and be more of the background guy than trying to keep pushing myself towards an arena that I don't belong in. I'm Katniss Everdeen without a bow and arrow. Social media is at Meddling Your Diet on Twitter and Instagram, and Will Hancock on Facebook. Just laugh. Just laugh. Just find something to laugh at every day and realize that we need to stop taking ourselves so seriously. I'm Will Hancock, and I'm performing at Fest in Gainesville this weekend. Check out my interview on QPie.com and check me out.